It's time to work the stockinette section. And now the scarf gets a little more complicated. You will be purling in this section in addition to knitting, and you also have a lot more to keep track of. There's row 1 instruction and row 2 instruction. And row 1 is designated RS, which means right side. Row 2 is designated WS, which means wrong side. When you were doing the first part in garter stitch, the two sides of the fabric look the same. So you don't have to keep track of things. You just keep going, everything looks the same. However, now you're about to embark on stockinette stitch, and the two sides of the fabric will not look the same. The right side of the fabric will look smooth, and the stitches will look rather like the letter V. And on the wrong side, the fabric will look bumpy. It'll look more similar to the garter stitch that you have been doing. So you need to keep track of which side you're working so that you maintain the patterns on each side. And you'll also need to be counting your stitches because row 2 asks you to knit 3, purl 24, knit 3, so you have to keep track of where you are in the row. You get off easy with row 1 because it's exactly the same as what you've been doing. I have one more stitch here to knit to finish row 1, so that's done. I'm going to turn my needle as usual and start to work row 2, which starts out exactly the same as what you've been doing. There's 3 knit stitches, 1, 2, 3, and here's where it gets different. It's time to purl. In order to purl, you need to bring the working yarn to the front, and you have to do it in a very specific way. It must come forward between the needles. And once that's done, you're ready to start using your needles to make the stitch. And it's really just kind of the reverse of a knit stitch. You will insert your right hand needle into the stitch, but the stitch front, right to left. Insert right to left into the front of the stitch. So your right hand needle is making that X with the left hand needle. The right hand needle is in the front. You will wrap your yarn around the front needle, and it goes over the top and around the bottom back toward the front again. You will pop the loop through to the back this time and then slide the left hand stitch off. I'll show you again. This time, this second stitch, the yarn is already in the front where it's supposed to be for the purl, so you don't have to worry about bringing it to the front. Insert your right hand needle into the front of the stitch, right to left. Wrap the yarn around the needle, go over and under. Pop your loop through to the back and take the old stitch off the left hand needle. And I can show you with the yarn in my left hand, although usually when I demonstrate this, my hand really gets in the way and it's hard to see what I'm doing. But insert your needle right to left in the front of the stitch, wrap the yarn over the top of the needle, bring it toward you, pop your loop through to the back and off. And you will do this 24 times total. And I'm going to take out the middle of this video so you don't have to watch me do all of this, and I'll show you what happens once we get to the knit stitches, the 3 knit stitches at the end. Here we are at the end of the row. I have one more stitch left to purl. And now in order to knit these 3 remaining stitches, I must take the working yarn to the back of the work, again through the needles, in between the needles and to the back of the work. And then I will knit the last 3 stitches. Turn the work, and it is time to start row 1 again, which is just knit all the way across, and then you'll do row 2, which has the knits and the purls, and you'll keep going back and forth on these 2 rows until you have about 6 inches.